What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome to the Couple on Fire podcast. On today's episode, we have an amazing interview. And when's that coming up?
Right now.
Jazz hands, right?
Yeah.
We do the jazz hands with that. So we want to welcome you guys to today's show. I am your host, Josh, here with the other host, beautiful Miss Kristy. How are you, love?
I am amazing.
You are amazing. This is actually a true statement. So if you've never joined us before, we are the Couple on Fire. Why do we call ourselves that? Because we're on fire for our relationship. We're on fire for our marriage. We are on fire for our relationship with Jesus as well. Plus, we like to talk about blended families, marriage, and a lot of other things. So if that's anything that interests you, please make sure you take an opportunity to hit like, subscribe, depending on what platform you are on. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can follow us on that. We do go live typically every single Tuesday, but if we don't go live, we probably have an interview or something else, but it's always at 7 p.m. Eastern. So today's episode is going to be an interview.
Yeah.
But before we dive into that, before we jump right into that, is there anything that you want to talk about first?
I should have been thinking about this beforehand.
I wish I could take every clip of every previous episode of you saying that.
You could do that.
I'm not doing that. That's a lot of work.
You could, though.
That's a lot of work.
So lately, what have you done for me lately? Let me think. Not really. I mean, Josh and I have really embraced, you and I have really embraced trying to live healthier. We're not getting any younger.
True.
Like Josh is pushing 50.
I'm going to be 49 in September.
Yeah. And I am getting up there as well.
She's going to be 35.
Yeah. So we literally, for the past year, I would say at least, we have been inconsistent, like on and off, but I would say pretty consistent of 3 to 4 days a week of walking for 30 minutes. But then in the last 3 months, I would say, was that fair?
Yeah.
We have been walking every day 30 minutes at different times. We have a treadmill. I do mine in the morning. He does mine after I'm gone for work. And then now that it's nice out, because we live in Michigan, boo. So when it's not winter, now we're also walking at night around our neighborhood for 30 minutes, and we're eating better. We are trying to, if you've watched any of our podcasts before, we normally drink Coke Zero, and now we have started drinking sparkling waters. Right now, tonight we have bubbly.
It's sparkly, and there's no artificial sweeteners in it. This is good for us until probably 3 years from now. They're going to find out it has cancer in it too. So
yeah,
but for now,
we have tried so far on this journey the last 2 weeks, Waterloo and LaCroix and bubbly, and there's Polar something, and then there's Zevia, and there's Spindrift or Spin.
Yeah, I think it's Spindrift.
Yeah, so we've tried them. So far, bubbly has been my favorite. I do like bubbly, all the flavors. I do like lime, though, pretty much in anything. So any kind, I liked the lime.
I only like, everything else tastes like rubbing alcohol. So bubbly in the blueberry pomegranate, as I look at it like I'm old, right?
We don't get any royalties or anything from telling you guys this. We're just letting you know about our journey.
So this is the only one I found that I like.
So that's part of our health journey. We're eating healthier, walking, staying active.
Yep.
Using grounding mats. I'm using a gua sha stone every night on my face.
You are.
To get all the lymph node drainage.
I'm not using the stone. It's funny. She went to go use it on me one time, and she's like, "Oh wait, you don't have anything there."
He doesn't.
You have to look up gua sha stones, okay? Mine are empty, apparently.
You
naturally
take the stone and you run it along here. I mean, there's a whole thing, but specifically here, you can feel when you run the stone crinkles, and that's drainage. Well, over time, it goes away and it's smooth. I only have a couple crinkles now, back here, but for the most part, it was well, I did it on him. It was nothing. I'm like, and it's everything, he doesn't stink ever, even when he sweats. He doesn't have crinkles on his face. He drops weight like this when we start.
No.
I mean, you pretty much are an alien.
Great. I'm not a good thing. All them things aren't good. I'm an alien. I'm a foreigner. All right. So that's enough of that. Okay. We're over that. So let's talk a little bit about the people that are going to be on our podcast, right? That's going to be on the show today, right? So we had the opportunity last year, just before our live event, which is coming up this November, on November 9th, our perfectly blended event for blended families and marriages. And so we had an opportunity.
I
Someone
don't
reached
even
out.
remember how we met them.
They reached out to us. I think it was
But how did they find us?
I
Just
think through the
random?
Facebook group. Yeah, I think she said she was looking up other things that were going on in Michigan, and they came across our event, and then she reached out to us, and then we decided to meet them before our event, right? And so we had an opportunity. So they live in Lansing, which is about 45 minutes from where we live right now, and so we had a chance to go meet them. We had a super long lunch, really got along with them. They came to the event, and then we've had another opportunity to recently to meet up with them for another lunch. And so they have a great story. They have an awesome story. They have a unique story, a blended story. So they have a lot that they're going to share on today's podcast, and so I think you're just going to find that there's just so much to glean from them, and walk away with some real good things. So without further ado, let's introduce Eloy and Stephanie Martinez. All right, so let's welcome our special guests that we have today, Eloy and Stephanie Martinez. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks
Hey,
so
glad to be
much.
here.
We're honored.
Yeah, so blessed that you guys chose to be on here. So, we're going to give you guys the third degree. No, we're not going to do any of that. We're actually just going to enjoy some healthy conversation. We've had an opportunity to really kind of get to know you guys a little bit over the last year or so. And
A
so
little bit.
right?
We
And
have a
so
lot more to go.
we do.
Yeah.
But we've had
Yes.
some opportunities, but, tell our listeners, our viewers, a little bit of a backstory about you guys, a little about how you guys met, a little bit about your families, and a little bit about you now.
Sounds good. Well, I'll start us off. So, Steph and I both are musicians, and we met at a mother-teen-daughter event. So, our church where I was on the worship team, we were hosting this event called Pure Freedom. So, Steph was their worship coordinator and would work with the bands there that would support the evening. So, I had the opportunity to work with her in that setting, and the rest is kind of history. That's kind of where it all kicked off. I mean, and granted, that night was all business as usual. It was all about kingdom, 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 making sure the event was on time, was going well. But as the night wrapped up, I was like, she's pretty cool. So I had to get to know her and send a text, or well, before the end of the night, I just let her know, hey, it was great working with you, kind of shaking hands. Hey, if there's anything I can help out, if you're in the area nearby, feel free to look me up or contact me, and we'll see if our guys can help you out. So that kind of kicked things off.
And that is very much the guy version
Yeah.
of the beginning. So let me give you the girl version. So yes, we did this. I traveled with a team. So we would come into a place, we would talk beforehand. And so I only talked to him on the phone to just kind of do some prep work for this event. So we would get there that day, we'd rehearse with this team. I'd lead worship with them, and then we would leave and go to the next place that same night. So one of our tour stops was Lansing, Michigan, which is where we met. And I noticed that he said goodbye to me 3 times. So I thought, okay.
Third time's the charm.
Third time's charm.
That's what I thought.
I'm like, okay, I think there's something going on here. And then my teammate was on the stage the last time when he came to shake my hand, and he walked away. She came running back over, and she was like, what was that? And I'm like, we exchanged information. We're musicians. You find someone you click with. So that's something you want to get to know. You want to keep them kind of in your pocket. And she's like, no, she was like, that was the sexiest handshake I've ever seen.
What do they call it? The handshake heard around the world?
Yeah.
That's what my teammates called it. So, but we were off to Ohio that night.
And she left bummed because I think one of our sound tech guys had mentioned that I was married, and I wasn't.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, there you have it. And like at dinner, we sat at the same table. So he was telling me about his teen daughters. So obviously something happened along the way that he would have teen daughters, but he wasn't wearing a ring. And it's not like it's the same thing. Like we were there to do ministry, but I, I had been single, well, for 38 years.
Mhm.
So, and you just kind of still look a little bit. But that night I asked if, or no, I didn't ask, somebody else asked if he was married, and the person said yes. So, but he wasn't. So I was kind of bummed, but then I got the correct information the next night when we text, because I thought, well, obviously I'm not gonna reach out, or I'll reach out one time after tour is over to just say thank you, and that's his chance, but that's it. But he texted me the next day, and that started a lot of conversation, a lot of questions. The first one of which, are you single?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said yes.
Yes.
So the conversation lasted more than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's
And
funny.
it's fun on this side of things when back then we were comparing stories and notes. That there was one time, maybe a month before the actual event, we kind of got together on the phone just to talk logistics and prayed. And after that, after we prayed and hung up, I can remember I kind of went, what was that? And she, on the other hand,
Same
had the
thing.
same experience.
Hmm.
Like she said, something awoke in her.
Yeah, it was really weird when we prayed. I literally, I could tell you where I was standing in my condo. I just kind of cocked my head and I was like, that was weird, but it was like something on the inside of me woke up.
Yeah.
And I hadn't dated in 12 years. I had some broken engagements and I was done. And I hadn't dated in 12 years. And it was a very, very dormant, quiet
Yeah.
place in my life. But when it woke up big time. So, and then we met, and then 51 weeks later, we got married.
Right.
So now we live in Lansing, Michigan. I'm
Yeah.
West Pennsylvania, and became a Michigander. I'm sorry, I'm still a Pennsylvanian. I live in Lansing, Michigan, and we have, when we met, our girls were his girls, which are now my girls, 14 and 16, and we have a 9-year-old son.
That's right.
All right. 9 years later. All right.
9, yeah.
Mhm.
So we've been married 11 years this past March.
So are you blessed with grandkids yet?
No,
No.
we're not ready. I
Not
think
ready.
having a 9-year-old's like, no, not yet. We're not, I'm not ready. Like I just did the whole baby toddler thing. Like, not yet.
And that's fair.
That is
They
fair.
have a
Yeah.
9-year-old. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
fair. Yeah. I mean, our youngest
Yeah.
at this point is 20. So we're like, grandkids, it's fine.
Right.
We're okay with
Well,
that.
and the pictures of your grandson and all of you can tell that you are living the grandparent dream. I love it.
That's
Yeah.
right. We go and have fun, and then we get to come back home alone. So it's nice.
Yeah.
The beauty of
That's
it.
great.
So it's the greatest. All right, so let's talk a little bit about a topic that I think that really plays well with you guys' story. You guys have a lot of experience in it, and I think that our listeners and viewers will get a lot from it. And so let's talk a little bit about playing the long game in relationships. And so maybe you can share maybe some examples of how you guys played this long game in your relationship, or how that's played a role in building into your relationship. Maybe share a little bit about that for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, great questions. And
Yeah.
I think, Steph and I talked about it, just, kind of reminiscing the small beginnings. But I think part of the long game was, I knew for me, it was important to get along with the girl's mom. Like,
Mm.
and thankful to the Lord, she was in agreement that, what we did for the girls. So I think having that established before even Steph came along, it just helped us out in many ways. And I know sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's all about communications. And if we can really get past our own whatever feelings that we may have, to know the better for the children. And I was blessed to have somebody that just at least I felt was a good person in that aspect, with all our differences.
Sure.
That the girls came first. That was key for me.
Yeah. And I think, playing the long game, we really got a taste of the benefit of it and the need for it in this past 7 months of our lives. In December, our younger daughter, who is 25, she was diagnosed with cancer. So it was just this crazy, unexpected, life kind of halting diagnosis. And it landed us all, like all being our oldest daughter, our younger daughter who was in the hospital, Eloy, myself, and the girl's mom in the same hospital room. And it made me so grateful for the past 13 years, because like Eloy said, that he and the girl's mom chose to play the long game way back then. And we were seeing the fruit of it. Like the fact that we could all be in the same room, and it wasn't about drama. It was about what was best for Nay. It was about what we needed to do to rally together as a family. It was, can you do this and I'll do this. And for the next 6 months while she was in chemo treatment, I, Naomi's mom and me and Naomi, we would sit through the chemo treatments together. We would go to appointments together. They called us the moms. So they just kind of came to know us as a package deal. But it made me so grateful that we had made some of the harder choices. Like you swallow hard sometimes when you don't agree, when you're frustrated, when custody arrangements aren't working out the way that they are supposed to on paper. A surprise, one Christmas Eve, we were driving home, I remember, and from Christmas Eve service with our girls, and we were like, so what time are we meeting up with your mom tomorrow so you guys can, go over there for Christmas? And they're like, oh, mom's in Florida. Okay. So like, we had no idea. Like, okay, it was a swallow hard moment. And it was a zip your lips, Steph, right now.
Yeah.
And just kind of, okay, there you go. So we still had our moments like that it was just the moments where you choose not to say things. And then other moments where you choose to say things. Like, when conflicts did come up, you were always really good about engaging that and dealing with that and kind of being running point on those things.
And I don't even know if I can't say that in the moment we thought that we were playing the long game. I think we just always try to do the right thing, because I can think back and remember just even through the girls' graduation, we all did it together. We're like their mom and her significant other, and a bunch of us are around the table making skewers for the open house.
It was bizarre.
It was crazy to think that we're all doing that, but that was part of the long game that, I don't think back then we would have thought that that's what we were doing, other than we were living God's truth, right? We were just doing what's best for the girls and, trying to reflect his love. But it's odd in the moment when you're having to walk those paths and do those kinds of things with them.
And it's awkward. I know when we started dating, I said to Eloy, I said, if, when I came out to Michigan to eventually meet the girls, I said, I want to meet the girl's mom. And he said, what? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that really surprised me. But
yeah. I said, if I'm going to be in your life, she's going to be in mine because of the girls. So set up coffee. So the three of us sat down and we had coffee. And yeah, it was weird. But I asked her questions. I had already just sent her a message because she knew that we were dating. And I just put it out there that, I'm not trying to take your place as the girl's mom. I just hope to be another woman who can invest and love the girls and help them become who they're supposed to be. So I wanted her to know I'm not a threat. We can be allies in this. And so we really tried to add communication from the beginning. And, I asked her how the girls were doing with meeting with me or meeting me for the first time, if there was anything that I could do to make it easier, just because she would have heard more from the girls about how they were feeling than he would have.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, if you can communicate from the beginning, I know that served us so well in the long game.
Eloy, I just out of curiosity though, is your ex-wife, was she a Christian or is she a Christian?
No, she wasn't. She didn't grow up in the church. And at some point, maybe she
has come
She
and gone.
has, she had her faith, or I don't know if she ever accepted the Christ and like technically in that aspect.
Yeah.
Because when we got married, I wasn't always living the best of lives either. I was kind of sowing my own oats, so to speak,
Right.
until the Lord got a hold of me again. I grew up in the church, and for a while there, you kind of walk those rebellious ways and
Yeah.
and do your own thing. And so during that time, that's when we met. And uh, but to some degree, she had some faith, but she didn't walk it out,
Mhm.
unfortunately. Um, so hopefully there'll
Okay.
be
I mean, that I
hope
was
for
just
that. Yeah.
curious and
Yeah.
it worked. Sounds like it worked out so well. You being a Christian, having a person that's not necessarily a Christ follower, keeping the girls in mind, as the long game.
Yeah, and I really think, unfortunately, I think that's a rarity, believe
Yeah.
it or not. Your situation is, encouraging and empowering. But Stephanie, was there any time, within the last years, with Eloy's ex, was there any friction points? Was there ever any times where like, oh man, this is who it's about to go down, or you had to hold your P's and Q's? Is there any times that
Yeah.
any of that's come up?
Yeah, there were times, have been times where I have to, again, kind of swallow hard. Like, are you kidding me? Just, are you serious? Like, just kind of that. Um, but I think with just choosing the times that were critical things to communicate and not nitpicking everything. The goal was never to be we weren't looking to be friends, like hang out
Yeah.
friends,
Right.
but we
Yeah.
wanted to at least be kind of
Cordial.
operational together,
Yeah.
cordial, operational. I mean, the reality is I'm around her girls. I need to mom her girls. I need to
Yeah.
be aware of what's going on with them physically, aware of what's going on. So, but there were times that it got frustrating. There were times that, I felt kind of presumed on in the schedules and the custody things and, the surprise times that the girls were
Yeah.
just at our house without the communication, that it would catch me off guard. And I'm not a good pivoter. So that would really tweak me. So I'd really have to kind of hold my tongue and just, we worked in it. We had to learn to really make and uphold boundaries.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that helped to just kind of give my heart a little more safety in some of those. There was still a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Eloy, did you ever feel like you were in the middle of any of that going on? Did you ever feel like you had to pick a side? I mean, is that something that's ever come up?
Man, I don't know. I can't remember having to pick a side, but I think we may have talked, and I had said, hey, I'm always going to side with truth,
Mm.
and I don't know if I'm kind of like my Abba Father. When he forgives and forgets, I don't even remember stuff like that. So I don't remember some of those details, but I think, I mean, how I answered it? Is that I never said, I don't know if I said like, don't make me choose between
Yeah.
anybody.
One time you said that to me, you teared up and you're like, I just don't want to have to choose.
Mm.
And that was never my heart to ask him to choose. And the reality is, one thing I had to learn through, I think, us making boundaries and through even just kind of embracing the whole landscape. Again, I'd never been married. I didn't have kids. So it was not a normal thought I wasn't a parent. It wasn't normal to just always have kids around. And on paper, a custody arrangement looked like 2 days on, 2 days off every other weekend. So I expected that to be what it was. It was a bit more fluid than that.
Usually is.
Yeah, right. And in my
Yeah.
naivete, I didn't really know that. So I had to learn that it wasn't competition, and really to there were times where he would go out with just the girls and they would just have their time and I would stay home. As an introvert, I was delighted to have time alone. Because again, like here's my house, like I am sharing it now with teenagers. And yeah, it was different. So like
And
even
I had to learn to give grace because, she's never been a mom and a parent. So, and in my mind, I'd be like, well, she loves God. She knows God. She's a pastor. I thought she would have all these true principles in her mind of these
Not
kinds
when it
of
comes to
things.
teenagers. So, okay.
thank you.
When you're walking, I learned that I just gotta, I have to give grace because they're unknowns, and I know the Holy Spirit has led her.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think we had to learn, like for me, I was being too rigid. For him, he was too fluid. And both extremes will work against you. So really you have to find that middle ground of being flexible or bendable. Like if you're bendable, you're not going to break. But I was too rigid, he was too fluid, and and it caused some issues. But when you can communicate through them, like you everything that you work through, every win, every lesson, it's all long game. It's all long game.
Yeah, it is. And I think we're, consistently sowing into the future, of course, but and a lot of it's trial and error, let's be honest, right? We try to take some wisdom from others that's led the way before us, but everybody's situation, it's something we've learned over the years of being part of blended families, interviewing people that are blended families, being around somebody like that there's so many different scenarios and there's so many different things that can happen. I mean, I had a very, toxic, high level toxic ex-wife, that played a major negative role in a lot of stuff. And not everybody has that, sometimes it just plays out a little differently and they have other struggles. But the honesty is there's always going to be struggles. And if we're not keeping our eyes on the future of how all this is going to play out, not just for ourselves and our marriage, but also for our kids and our family, things can really start to take a big turn on us in a second.
Yeah, it's true. And, the relationships there, I mean, there's so many different dynamics in a blended family. You've got the marriage, you've got, ex-spouses, you've got biological parents, even if there's, there isn't like a marriage involved.
Family that lives next door.
Family are neighbors.
Everybody loves Raymond.
Yeah.
We've got teenagers, and I had one that was so easygoing, and then I had one that was chilly and challenging, and she knows it. Like here's the long game. Like she's 28. This past Saturday, we got together and we sat and talked, just the two of us, for 4 hours.
Wow.
She's a verbal processor like me, so we just talked, but we're working together on a project, a writing project, and so we were talking about some things to go along with that, and she started that part of our conversation with, I tried to make things as miserable for you as I could. Like, that's what she said. And she did. Like, it was rough. Like, talk about like some of those times, like it wasn't always with his former spouse. It was with someone I shared a home with. So
his daughter did that too. His daughter was 14 when him and I got together. And
it is teenage girl chill. There is nothing like it. It is a superpower that can just shut you down. And it was just a lot of consistent, and I mean, there were times that I gave her fuel. I absolutely admit that. And there were times when I'd throw some ice back at her. Even though maybe I should have known better, I still did it. But
and never out of disrespect. You guys never disrespected each other.
No,
but I think that sometimes that might hurt more.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I think so. But just the consistency of being there, just being there, being intentional, not giving up. And even if you're loving through some grit teeth, and prayer, like just praying and I was learning, I was growing, I needed grace and I had to give grace. But man, I'm so thankful that 11 years later, I can sit down with that same daughter and it's not chill, it's tears coming down our faces as we're both like just sharing depths of our heart. And
Love
that is the beauty that God can make. Like he really can make beauty out of ashes.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the project that that you're working on at all?
Well, sure. We are working on a book for blended families because, well, everybody needs blended help, right? So,
Amen.
but one thing I wanted to do was I didn't want to write just from my perspective. I wanted the opinions of our girls and Eloy because everyone has what we call a different POV, a point of view. You know, it's like the disciples, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Like when they wrote the scriptures, they were inspired by the Holy Spirit. We know that, but they all wrote through the personality that was theirs and their own vantage point. So they said some of the same stories, but they read differently because they picked up on different nuances and angles of the story. It's the same in a blended situation. There's different nuances, there are different angles, and there have been things that we have learned that have been unbelievable. Like with our oldest daughter, Alex, when I was pregnant with our son, she was not a fan.
Yeah, she actually said, like, after she got married, can you guys wait to have kids until I'm 18 and move out? Or
She did. It just worked out that way, but it didn't make it any better. And it was a really rough patch. Like she was not, like in her words, she was not on board, and she really wasn't. And by this time, the girls lived with us full time, and you know, obviously my belly's growing, so something is happening, even though she didn't want to really talk about it. And
but this developed for like this went on for years, and it got better, right? The
oh,
relationship got better.
100%.
But we just found maybe a couple years ago that we found out how she felt. Like we all had just a table, what do you call it? Just we talking, chatting it up, and we were talking how Naomi was touching your belly and stuff when Josiah was born.
Or no, when he was in
when he was in your belly,
yeah.
that's right. And Alex looked at her sister right in the living room, like, you touched her belly?
Yeah.
And Naomi's like, yeah. And then Alex just started crying, tearing up. And she looked at Josiah. She's like, I'm so sorry that I didn't touch you when you were in your mama's womb. Belly, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and this was like obviously years later because we just found this out a couple of years ago that.
But what we didn't know is that she thought that she would have to move out because like we were kind of maxed on bedrooms. So she asked her dad one day when he was setting up the crib, like, do you want me to move out? He's like, no, what are you talking about? Like it wasn't even on our radar. But yeah, she thought she would be evicted by this baby. Well, no
she
wonder
graduated out the door.
Yeah, like no wonder she was acting out of that place of like, I am not on board with this. No wonder. But just, you know, those conversations later, you find out some of the reasons behind the chill. And I guess that's one thing that I've learned on this side is that there are times when there's just brattiness, but then there's times when there's brokenness. And playing the long game will help. We have to be motivated to look for the brokenness and not just attribute it all to brattiness, because there might be something going on deep inside that is hurting. And it's acting out in a really kind of whack way.
Yeah. So you're going to have to come back on when the book's finished so we can, share it with our listeners. You know, I mean, Blended Families is who our market is. So, you know, everybody that listens or watches is going to definitely find some value in that. So real quick, you know, as we jump into the next section of our podcast, you know, Eloy, I want you to, you guys shared a verse with us, you know, Romans 12:18, you know, and so why don't you kind of open that box up and talk a little bit about what that verse means to you guys and how that's kind of been some guidance within your relationship.
Yeah, I think that verse to us is just, you know, you take in account for your own actions, right? So, not and being mindful not to repay, evil with evil. You know, for me is always in my mind, even when newly married. The word says, don't go to bed mad, so to speak. I'm paraphrasing. And so, and not that one didn't slip by, but we'd wake up the next morning and be like, you know what, I was a jerk. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But keeping that in mind that, tomorrow's never promised for anybody.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
we need to be accountable, for today in the moment
Mm.
and learn to, own good and bad that we do, but not to repay, evil with evil.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think you pretty much summed it up. Like, just to take responsibility for your own actions, to own up to what's going on, and if it's possible, to live at peace. If it's possible, which I'm thankful that the Bible says that, because it makes me realize that maybe it's not possible in all situations. So it leaves space for, like, it's not all on you. Like,
Mm.
Right.
you can't make everything work. And I think sometimes, you can try hard, but if you are working with someone who refuses to work, then it's not on you. You don't have to do it all. So you do you, essentially. So, and there are times when that's not really possible.
Yeah. I think, as long as we're not, like Eloy said, repaying evil with evil. One of the hardest things sometimes in blended families that have toxic exes that they're having to deal with, living in peace with everyone isn't possible, but you remaining internally at peace is possible. Keeping your mouth shut, biting your tongue, swallowing hard, like you said, is sometimes it feels like you're gonna die from
Choking on it.
asphyxiation or something.
Yeah.
But that is what God wants us to do, because in the long run, like, once the kids grow up
They do.
and they'll remember and they'll figure it out, and it's the long game, like you guys are talking
Yeah, I mean, years ago for us, so when our kids were coming up, they were much smaller. And so, we would decide with my ex about Christmas and Christmas Eve. And then that became kind of a game. So if we had the kids on Christmas morning, my ex would keep the kids till super late on Christmas Eve, intentionally not answer her phone and play these games. And then when we did get them she had them Christmas Eve night and we get them Christmas morning, she would wait really late into the day to bring them over. So we never really got them in the morning. And so we had to do the thing where we're like, okay, we need to make a decision. Like, are we going to keep fighting this? Because we're making things really uncomfortable for the kids because we want them on Christmas morning. We don't want to miss this. And so we're like, no, we have to do the right thing. And so we said, you know what? You can have them every Christmas morning.
every Christmas Eve. They can spend the night at your house.
Every Christmas Eve, yep.
Yep. They can
Every
spend
Christmas
the night.
Eve night, yep.
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 They can
Yeah.
spend the night at your house. And then my kids stayed at their dad's. Hey, you can have them every Christmas Eve. Can you just make sure that they're back here by like 10? And it turned into a really special night. Christmas Eve turned into a special night for us, because we didn't have any kids in the house. And so I think
But it got very emotional. It's very emotional still today because we had to sacrifice these special, amazing things. Let's be honest, right? God
our
doesn't,
kids waking up and
God doesn't
different.
endorse divorce, right? There's
No. Right.
things that we have to deal with because of that. And these are things that we've
Yeah.
had to deal with. And,
Mhm.
but we had to think of the long game. Like, how are
That's
we
right.
going to pay, how are we going to tell our kids that it's not about hurting them, that we care about them. And so,
Right.
and that's part of the struggle.
Yeah.
The long game's not
Right.
the easy game, right? The long game
No,
is
No.
hard.
it's not. It's not. You really have to, a lot of times, give up short-term comfort for the long game outcome. But I love what you're saying, because you never made your kids the pawns.
Right.
You didn't play them as leverage. You see so much damage that's done in those scenarios, or you didn't like bash their mom. Like, you got to watch all that stuff. because, if you're bashing verbally, if you're throwing up a whole stink, if you're leveraging the kids, all of that is, like you said, Kristy, it is going to jeopardize the long-term relationship with your
Yeah.
kids. So sometimes you have to have some short-term discomfort, but you're actually going to have a better relationship on the back end of things, if you'll make some of those hard choices. But I love, it says, like, if it's possible, live at peace. But I love the verses that flank that verse.
Yeah.
In Romans 12, because that's where it says, don't repay evil for evil. Be careful to do what's right in the eyes of everybody. That's what you guys were doing in making that sacrifice. It says, don't take revenge, because God says it's mine. Like, vengeance is mine. It's
And I
mine
want to
avenge.
sometimes so bad.
I know. But I feel like he's given us this, like, bookend to help us. Like, okay, if you can't live at peace, then just, don't repay evil for evil.
Yep.
Don't try to take vengeance. And then verse 21, don't be overcome by evil, but overcome the evil with good. Like, if you can't live at peace, here are the things you do.
Right.
So he covered both sides, the word covers it all.
And that's where really having trust in our faith has to be the forefront leader in all of this,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
we can read it, but if we're not living it and believing it,
Yeah.
how can we
Yeah.
trust in that, it's going
Right.
to work within us? So,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about blending love and family. Let's talk a little bit about, how did God bring together some special elements, some special little elements within each of you. And, how did you see that kind of come to fruition in your own relationship and your own family?
That's a great question. Great question. Kind of
You want
hard.
me to go first?
Yeah, hard to answer for me. I mean, I think the beauty of moments, just some of the times we got to spend with the girls, um, making those memories that just was about family time, wasn't about anything else.
Yeah, I think building our own new traditions,
Yeah.
and like, I remember our first Christmas together, when we were unpacking the Christmas ornaments and putting up the tree, it was all their childhood ornaments. So I'm looking at, like, the pine cone angel with the pipe cleaners, and the tissue paper angel with the clothespin body.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these things, and they're putting them on the tree, and I'm trying to choke back my tears because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't a part of that with them. And, like, I found my heart grieving that I wasn't a part of those early growing up years with them. So, like, thankfully in the moment it didn't turn into a total meltdown, but I started asking questions like, when did you make this? And what, where did you make it? And just started, like, asking questions into the moments. And for me, that first Christmas, there was, like, this realization that while I wasn't a part of the old, I could bring the old into our new, even in my own heart,
Yeah.
and build off of that. And then that year, I forced him to go out and cut a tree with me. We did that as a family for the first time, and he still hates it to this day. But I told him before
Much
we
rather
got
buy
married,
one that's cut.
I told him, you want to marry me, you have to get a real tree. Like, that, we go hands in hand. So, and then that tree, like, so that was a new experience for the girls that we got to share together and go on the little wagon ride, and they loved it. And then we filled that tree with my ornaments, from, what I brought from Pennsylvania. So it was like, we just did 2 trees. So it's like the embracing of the old, and the learning about it, and then also, like, bringing into a new. So I think for me, that was, like, talk about combining, like, love and a special moment. I think our first Christmas was one of it was awkwardly beautiful. So
Yeah.
And part of the hard thing, I think, too, is, for me anyway, in our blended family, what was hard is we really embraced over time. It took us a little bit, but starting to do new traditions and things like that.
Yeah.
And what really got hard for me is as they all got older, trying to figure out like the family that we worked so hard to blend
Mm.
is starting to disperse. And like that was one thing we started doing, is going out and getting a real Christmas tree, which it's funny that you guys, you know, have that. And then all the boys would come up, and Jordan, and they would all put on the ornaments together, and we'd all be playing Christmas music. Well, as they got older, they didn't want to do that anymore. And there was a couple years where I was really forcing these traditions because they were so important to me. Like, you have to go to Bronner's and we all get an ornament and this is fun. And you have to come upstairs and we all have to put the ornament on the tree together. It's fun, you know, and I had to embrace the new, where it's just ruining the memories when you're forcing them to do, because they're growing into young men, and you're forcing them to do these things they don't want to do. They can throw around real man attitude and ruin the memories that are important to me. They don't even care about them anymore. And so being able to manipulate these traditions as the blendedness gets older and they're choosing to do different things is really hard too. It's a grieving process that we have to go through.
Yeah.
We're not, we haven't gone there. Our girls have been able to go with us every year, but yes,
they're
I can
girls
see how
though.
that
Jordan
would
still
be.
goes with us every year too. Like Jordan still does too, but the boys, no. No.
They don't want any part of it. They're like,
yeah.
Part of it. I'm like, these guys need to get out and get married, and then we'll have them. It'll be fine.
Yeah, because their wives are going to want to do that again. So the wives are going to bring them back in.
Yeah. Right. Which is how it will work. So, you know, it's nice though hearing these elements. You know, it's so easy. You know, I know a lot of times what'll happen when we get into blended families is typically what's easiest is one family will move into the other family's home. Well, that home was a home that was tradition already and always. This was my room. This was my things. This was my, and now we're bringing other into, you know, it's not, I wish it could always be, we could just go out and get a brand new home and not have to worry about any other things. But let's be honest, it just doesn't work that easy, you know? And so creating new traditions is, you know, I hope everybody heard this as, you know, as they were sharing this, but there's a lot of power and empowering things that come along with that to spark forward a movement in your own family relationships and blending, you know, that gets to start anew, and which is exactly what we're all looking for, including the kids.
Right, exactly. And that was our scenario. I moved into their family home where the girls had spent most of their growing up years with their mom and dad. And I had said to him before we got married, I'm never moving into that house. Well, you know, why? Why do you say never with the Lord?
Because God will make you never like you nevering like you've never nevered before.
I saw that. Were you the one who posted that? Yeah. I saw it posted. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, that was my never. But now seeing it on the other side, like the incredible redemption story that he's built like out of our home, it's beautiful. It's amazing. And it's grace. It's God.
There were some things that the girls they didn't learn. They didn't get to see it from their mom. So they saw Steph just had an eye for decor. I mean, she made the house a home.
I love that.
And the girls, you know, they saw the makeovers and they're like, wow, this is amazing. They were just really, and you and Alex did a lot of
it together. Ironically, because she started homeschooling a month before we got married. Surprise. So my alone time with him during the day that I thought was no more, didn't exist. But because she was online schooling, she dug in with me. We painted, we shopped, we decorated, and it was actually something that we bonded over, and it was a very strained relationship. So it you know, for a season it helped, and then we hit some bumps in the road, you know. It's one of those. So.
We all do. We all do. So, you know, let's talk a little bit about maybe some practical tips, maybe some things, some resources that you guys have been able to utilize over the years, individually and together? Eloy, why don't you go ahead and start with us?
Yeah, I some of the resources I have some good friends that I walk with, so they help me kind of stay out of the gutter, so to speak, if I had anything to talk about. So it's always good to have that friend, that brother that
Mm,
you can, kind of run, I think, ideas past or just thoughts. I think that's good. That's a good practical to have somebody that and I don't know if everybody has that. So I'm thankful that I have that. But really stay in tune with the Lord as best as you can. I mean, His word says He'll never leave you nor forsake you,
mm.
and sometimes that's all I had to hold on to, really,
Amen to that.
because
Yeah.
there were some moments that I didn't even know, that would happen, that I would walk through in a blended situation with a new wife and the kids, that they have an additional person to learn to love and all that kind of stuff. So there were many times where I literally didn't have anyone else to hold on to except for the Lord. That, Lord, you said that you would carry me, like these one set of footprints that I see. This is when you got me. So I
Wow.
dug into that, and I know not everybody has that perspective of faith, maybe,
Sure.
but if there are people that are listening that maybe know, or there's a hope, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There is somebody that's there that will walk with you, and his name is Jesus, and
Mm.
that's really what I hung on to. What
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think wisdom, just wisdom from his word. And I don't mean that to sound cliche. It's just it's truth. It's the mirror that helps you see you. I'll also say one of the best books that helped me. I can't remember the author right now, but it's called How You Live with a Screwed Up Person. So it was one of the best things that I read in the course of time, um, because it helped me to learn how to not be triggered, and to recognize, like, what is it in me that is getting tweaked?
Mm.
Why
Yeah.
is it getting tweaked? And how do you get untweaked? So that was one of the best resources that I've read. And then, like Eloy said, just having people that have just walked with us. We had our pastors who did our premarital counseling, did our postmarital counseling.
Which everybody should have postmarital
Everybody.
counseling.
You need postmarital counseling as much as you need pre, because
Yeah.
pre, you're learning it all. And then post, when you have the emotion in there, like, it's so easy to forget what you learned. So,
It's the cleanup.
but
It's the cleanup crew.
Yeah.
Like all the dust
yeah,
is
it
settled
is.
from the new construction. Let's come back
Yeah,
in
that's
Yes,
and do
right.
some construction
that,
cleanup.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
that is exactly it.
Well, you know what? We really want to thank you guys for being here. You've been, a light of hope, some encouragement, and it's nice hearing that, you have a story that, you have adult children and you have a together child still at home. And so, there's some encouragement in that you guys are pushing through. You lean on the Lord for your strength and your wisdom, and you're not you understand the value in reaching out and connecting with community. And I think there's so much value in that. But as an opportunity for others, why don't you share maybe a way that other people can get a hold of you guys? In what ways?
Yeah, they can reach us. Our handles for Facebook and Instagram are Eloy and Stephanie. Just, I think that the @ symbol, Eloy and Stephanie, for either platform. Our website, eloyandstephanie.com. Yeah, those are our best ways to get in
Okay.
touch with them.
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah, I want everybody that's on here right now that if you're looking to be encouraged, if you're looking for, maybe even to reach out and let them know that you want to be, added to a list of, for them to reach out to let you know that when their book becomes available, something like that. It's nice to know that you have somebody else to connect with in the blended world, because as we all know, there's not a lot of resources available to blended families. So
Mhm.
we really want to
Right.
thank you guys so much for.
It's
Oh,
our
thank you.
pleasure.
Yes.
We love your podcast. We're so thankful for it. And we're so excited to see you on November 9th. So, okay,
Yeah.
this is my time, my turn to plug you guys, your blended conference in Flint, Michigan. Again, we went last year and it was
amazing.
so good.
Oh.
And we love that you guys are really trailblazers and pioneers and such an incredible resource to families like ours that it's nice to know people who are walking and have walked and who do it by God's truth. So we're grateful for you guys and can't wait to see you on November 9th.
And we're excited because we gained new friends,
I
right?
know.
Like, and we
Fun.
live close enough that we can visit each other. It's great.
Have lunch.
Yep, have
It is.
lunch.
And we'll have to see a movie at that theater you went to because
For sure, right? Yeah.
We'll
Screen
plan
X.
it. We should plan a double date for all of us to go because that was really cool, actually.
It was.
Yeah,
really cool.
it looked cool.
It did.
It was. All right,
Yeah.
guys, thank you so much. And make sure that we'll get you guys back on when the book comes available.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah,
We
thank you.
appreciate it.
Wow, what an amazing, amazing interview. You know, what was such a blessing to have them on the show, but not just that, for them to be just so open and honest about the things that they have been through together and about how they've really been able to lean on the Lord through their journey. It was great. That was an awesome interview.
I just love them. I really do. Like, I like how open and vulnerable they are to talk about honestly about honest feelings. And you can tell they're doing it from a healthy place. Like they've worked through it, they've dealt with it, they've prayed about it, and they can talk about it. And it's still, you can still like tell some of it is painful, but they definitely dealt with it.
No, they do. They did a great job, and they're been a great asset and great friends to us. And so if you have any struggles trying to get a hold of them, please reach out to us. We'll make sure you get connected with them. Also, you can see them at our next event. If you're interested, you can come meet them, talk much deeper conversations with them. November 9th, you can already register. You can just go to joshandkristy.com and pre-register right now to get your tickets. It's all up and running and ready to go. So make sure you do that. All right. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. We'll see you next Tuesday at 7.
Bye.